Hello, class. My name is Zachary Wells, and I'm going to be talking to you today about affirmative action. So, to kick things off, let's define affirmative action. According to the book, affirmative action is a policy or a program that strives to redress past discrimination through the implementation of proactive measures to ensure equal opportunity. In other words, affirmative action is the intentional inclusion of previously excluded groups. Affirmative action efforts can take place in employment environments, education, or other arenas. I apologize for the poor reading. I usually don't like to read from the screen, but I think that the book provided a great definition of what affirmative action actually is. So, where does affirmative action come from? What's the origin of affirmative action? Well, on March 6, 1961, John F. Kennedy enacted Executive Order 10925. Within this proclamation, the government decided to take affirmative action to ensure that applicants are employed and employees are treated during employment without regard to their race, creed, color, or national origin. In September of 1965, Lyndon B. Johnson enacted Executive Order 11246, which actually prohibited employment and discrimination regarding an individual's race, creed, color, or national origin by those receiving government contracts or subcontracts. And this is kind of the first time we see affirmative action in practice within governmental policy. And finally, on October 13th, 1967, Lyndon B. Johnson enacted Executive Order 11375, which actually amended the original Order 11246, adding sex under the protection of the Executive Order 11246. So, what are some of the benefits of affirmative action? Well, most individuals who support initiatives like affirmative action state that diversity is worth any sort of discrimination. According to General Motors, they stated that only a well-educated, diverse workforce comprising of people who have learned to work productively and creatively with individuals from a multitude of races and ethnic, religious, and cultural backgrounds can maintain America's competitiveness in the increasingly diverse and interconnected world economy. The Washington Higher Education Secretariat, in defense of affirmative action, also stated that a diverse student body enables all students to have the transformational experience of interacting with their peers who have varied perspectives and come from different backgrounds. These experiences, which are highly valued by employers because of their importance in the workplace, also prepare students with the skills they need to live in an interconnected world and to be more engaged citizens. Our economic future, democracy, and global standing will suffer if the next generation is not ready to engage and work with people whose backgrounds, experiences, and perspectives are different from their own. So moving on to criticisms of affirmative action, a lot of critics state that affirmative action fails to actually promote true diversity, and that true diversity is diversity of the mind and diversity of thought, not just of diversity of race, creed, color, or religion. Critics also state that affirmative action forces the innocent to pay for others' injustices, and it is a form of reverse discrimination. Critics also state that affirmative action stigmatizes racial groups. In the Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas's autobiography, he actually states that after graduating from Yale Law School, affirmative action was the sole reason for his difficulties in finding employment. Due to affirmative actions, employers doubted the legitimacy of his grades, and he was seen as an African American that received favor from the initiatives, not just an intellectual being. So, along with a lot of the criticisms that affirmative action has, there are several key court cases that arise from these initiatives. The first of which occurred in 1977 in the Regents of the University of California versus, I say Bake. I don't know how to pronounce his name actually, but I'm just gonna say Bake. So Alan Bake was a white male who applied to the University of California Medical School at Davis twice, and he was denied twice for admission. The university stated that they had reserved 16 places for qualified minorities in order to address the longstanding minority exclusion, and Mr. Bake was one of those dropped in place of those qualified minorities. Bake's qualifications, we later found out that his GPA and test scores were higher than any minority students admitted within this rejection period over these 2 years. So, with all the information in place, the question was asked, did the university's affirmative action policy violate the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause? And the court actually came up with an interesting decision. They stated no, but yes. In the instance of Bake, since his admission decision was based solely around his race, the university's affirmative action policy did actually violate the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause. So Mr. Bake was immediately admitted into the UC Med School. However, the court did decide that the use of race for application, approval, and denial was actually permissible if it were only one of several different admission criteria. So we move on to 2002 in Gruder versus Bollinger. A white female named Barbara Gruder applied to the University of Michigan Law School and was later denied despite her outstanding credentials. The University of Michigan stated during the case that they had admitted that race was used as a factor in the admission decision process, stating that the initiative served the school's interest in diversifying its student body. So once again, the question was asked, does the university's use of racial preference violate the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment? The court ended up deciding that no. Looking back to the precedent set by the Regents of the University of California versus Bake, the use of race, if it were solely part of the... Sorry, I apologize. The use of race, if it were part of a large criteria for admissions, was actually permissible. And in this case, University of Michigan only made race one of the factors in the decision process. Therefore, the admission policy was deemed non-harmful to non-minorities. So moving on to 2012, possibly the most high-profile and most recent case that we've seen based around affirmative action occurred in Fisher versus the University of Texas. To give you some backstory, in 1997, Texas legislature actually enacted a law that required University of Texas to admit all high school seniors from Texas who ranked in the top 10% of their high school. And then as vacancies began to be seen, race would be used to help determine the remainder of the class. It wasn't the sole determinant, however, it was one of them. So in 2008, Abigail Fisher, a white female from Texas, applied to go to the University of Texas. However, she was later denied. She later filed suit claiming that the admission policy violated the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. Once again, we see this. We've seen these in the past two cases. But the question kind of changed. In this, the question that was asked was that, does the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment permit the consideration of race in the university admission process? In a pretty heavily weighted decision, the court decided that yes, the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment does permit the consideration of race in the university admission process. However, it's only after strict scrutiny from lower courts does it become permissible. In this process, reviewers are to verify that policies in question are the only means to fulfilling governmental interests such as diversity. So why should we care about affirmative action? Well, we may live in the most diversified and connected generation in all of history. However, we must find the best way to promote this progress. Any form of negative discrimination or unfairness should not be permitted or promoted. I believe by informing ourselves on taboo topics such as affirmative actions, we better educate ourselves, and we we really make better decisions after we inform ourselves. And by doing research on topics such as affirmative actions in admission processes and even in business, we help to promote a more enlightened society and a more thoughtful society. Negative discrimination is not fun. Or regular discrimination, reverse discrimination, it shouldn't be promoted, and we need to really educate ourselves. So I'm just going to end it right here. I keep rambling on, but I appreciate you sticking with me to the end, and wherever you are, I hope you're having a good day, and I hope that this has helped you inform yourself on affirmative action. Thank you.